everybody. We got another very special guest for you all, returning once again to the show, the amazing Richard Fairgray. What's going on, Richard?
Hey.
Oh, just crushing it 24/7. Just living my absolute best life. I'm currently sitting on a computer chair. I haven't been able to. Well, the chair I've been able to sit on, but I'm on a like plastic mat that's in front of my computer desk that I spilt lube on the other day. And every time I've tried to like get off my chair and stand up, I've slipped over. So we're at like sort of high risk levels. And here's the thing: I've cleaned it several times. Like
that's lube. That's doing its job.
I know, but like lube is meant to be water based, you know.
Yeah, you gotta get right.
I've done everything, but I think it's like into like the grain of the plastic or something, and it really is just like it's a very comical like. I step off. It feels dry to the touch, by the way, and then I step off the chair and just whoop, straight over.
So it's like the adult version of slipping onto the banana peel.
Yeah, it really is. I have this
more realistic.
When I used to share my office with someone kind of out of kindness when I left LA during COVID, I was like, you can have my office. I'll pay the rent just because like my friend was living in a 1-bedroom with her husband. They were both working from home. So I was like, if you want to just come into my office each day and write, I'm out of the country. Right. And then she ended up staying far longer after like I started coming back and everything sort of got a little tense. And so when she finally left, I was like, this is my office again. I have total control. And so the place became like filled with just like all the alcohol that I wanted to have on hand, and like just like I was like, if I need to keep 30 different dildos in this room, I'm going to have bottles of poppers everywhere, and no one can question me because I'm a goddamn adult, and if I want my butthole loose, it's going to be loose. And then
exactly
when I was out of town, my landlord was like, hey, the Historic Building Society need to come in and like check out your office for architectural stuff, and I was like, fuck, like
yeah, right.
So now I have this old fridge that doesn't work, and so I keep all of that stuff in there. But the other day I was moving my laptop, the charging cable caught on the fridge door, it pulled the door open, and this bottle of lube fell out of the thing and landed on my floor. So
oh my god,
I don't know, I've learned nothing.
I've just learned it all just now. I was going to start off the interview. I mean, they always start off fantastic with you, but I just want to say the facial hair looks good.
Thank you.
Is this a new thing you're doing, or?
This sounds really calculated, but it's a combination of two things. One, I do not have hot water where I'm staying at the moment, which is driving me nuts. And so if I want to shave without like destroying my face, I have to boil water in a kettle beforehand, and that's annoying.
Yeah, it is.
But also, and I'm only here for a few more days, so who gives a shit, right? But also, because I'm putting out a memoir that's set during a time where I don't have a beard, there is something very comforting about looking at my face in these interviews and seeing that I look a little bit different than the person I was there. Horrified to see that my beard has gone white in the front here, but like I'll live with it. I've had gray hair on my head since I was 11, but I used to have like a very nice, thick, dark brown face situation going on.
Mm-hmm.
But being 37 is what it is.
Yeah, I've same here, gray hair since I was like, I don't know, a young lad. But I started getting gray in the beard this year, and I was like, oh no.
My friend has a joke she makes that like she has gray pubic hair now, and it's essentially like a sign that her vagina has become a haunted house.
Like the gray streak.
She's like it looks like the world's wiriest cobweb.
Oh my god!
They could make a horror movie. If we're talking about a straight woman here, millions of souls have died in that.
Wow. Wow. Where do you go from here? I think we just have the interview now and just be on our way. No, that was amazing. I know we're gonna like talk about the Kickstarter, and you made a nice segue from the beard, and it almost looked like we had planned that. And then we talked about sperm souls dying, and now I don't know how to get back to it.
That's what I do.
See, here's the thing. I hadn't even realized you were doing a cum joke. I just thought you meant my friend was a massive slut. Yep.
He probably was, to be honest.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
For the record, I was making a cum joke.
I mean, then we can't just insult vaginas. We also have to insult like my curtains in my teenage bedroom.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
the tissues of young Chris. There's I've killed many.
Crusty socks.
Oh.
I was literally just on the phone with my friend talking about how neither of us like to jerk off in the shower because of the way that water makes cum sort of separate into different textures.
Yeah.
So
It's not good.
yeah.
It's not like soap. We'll just put it like that. It doesn't work like soap. There's some weird science that goes out there. Some
This
weird
is science
fluid
I could get
mechanics.
behind.
I took a college course on fluid mechanics. I could probably figure it out, but I don't want. It's too much work.
I
don't
like
want
to
do
think
it.
of it like the waves on the beach at the end of Saving Private Ryan, and it's washing away the blood but leaving the bodies behind.
Wow. And then there we get back to the dead souls.
Yeah, I believe that all of my sperm are heroes of war, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
It's true.
Okay, I would love to read a book about that. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Anyway, good segue. There is a lot of cum in this book.
Okay, that's what I was. Yeah, I do want to ask: are your curtains featured in the book? What do we got going on?
I mean, well, no, there's a fair amount of sex. There's a lot of sex clubs in this book, because you know me, I'm a fan. And there's a decent amount of kind of allusions to things. There's very little nudity, surprisingly. There's only 2 dicks in the entire book, and neither of them are mine. So,
Wow.
sorry,
I'm surprised.
fans.
So, just to give everybody the lowdown, it is Octopus, a memoir of flailing that we're
Yes.
talking about today.
Yes.
A memoir of Richard himself, which, and I think we've said this every time we interview. It's like, dude, you could make stories out of the shit you tell us, and I think that's kind of what we're getting here is a glimpse into your crazy life.
Yeah, a little bit. Right, like back in 2018, I had a week off right at the end of the year between Christmas and New Year, and I was starting Black Sand Beach on like January 1st. I was going to start scripting it, and I thought, well, I have nothing to do. I'm just going to make a new book. And so I start, like, I didn't know what it was going to be. I drew this like single page. I've had these nightmares since I was a kid that I was going to turn into an octopus one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, there's a lot of obvious metaphorical whatever, and a lot of obvious like join the dots connections of I leave ink stains everywhere, etc. But
Yeah.
like, I think the bigger part of it is that I've like never been comfortable physically in any situation. Like, I'm always either ganglier than I intend to be or fatter than I intend to be. I'm not a person who looks back at photos and thinks, oh, look how charming and witty I'm being. It's more like, oh, I look like someone's uncle at a wedding, always holding a glass of brown liquid. And so I started drawing this like comic. It was a little 1-page thing. And then I toyed with doing a memoir years earlier. I had this, the first 4 pages of a book called Dick, the Richard Fairgray story. And then I'd always said like I was going to do a comic strip about me and my best friend, not really my best friend, but, you know, like a best friend in specific situations, very dear friend, but, you know, Indra. And I said, I'd written this 1-page gag about us being out for a drink and her going to the bathroom, leaving her phone on the table. And I go into it and I post a status that says, hi, I'm Indira, comics, feminism, anal sex, anal sex, anal sex. And I post it. And then she comes back and she says, did you use my phone? And I say, yeah. And she looks through Facebook and she goes, I can't tell which post is by you. And so I was like, well, why don't I do this, like a little short comic about the first night she and I ever hung out, which was like, I had just gotten divorced. I was living in this hotel with this surfing philanthropist, and she had called me being like, hey, we've only ever spoken online. Let's meet in real life because I'm getting divorced too. So we were kind of like, we were both prominent villains of the New Zealand comic scene. So it seemed like natural that we should join forces. And we hung out. We had this wonderful night. And so I just wrote the very true, accurate story of what happened, what we talked about, you know, the stories I told her from my life and how we were both feeling at that point. And it turned into this like just little 18-page thing. And I always intended to go back to it when I had space between other books, and I then never did because I'm me and I kept signing on to new projects and blah blah blah. And then right at the beginning, like not when lockdown happened, but when the first COVID case was announced in the US, my husband was visiting from Canada because back then we were still jumping back and forth every couple of weeks, and we walked over to my friend Nicole's place, and we stopped at the grocery store to get wine on the way. We went to her place. We were there for 3 hours. We left. We walked back, went to get wine on the way home, and the first case had been announced, and people had panicked. And all the shelves were empty. Some of the shelves had been like tipped over. There was a crazy long line. And we're like, well, we need wine. So my husband left the next day to go home, and I was like, I'll see you in a few weeks. And of course, then I didn't see him for like 6 months. And I didn't leave my house for like 6 months. And it was lonely and isolating and weird. And I was like, well, this seems like the right time to get massively introspective. And so I start making Octopus. And I just use kind of the same format, 18-page stories about just different points in my life. And I'd made 3 chapters. And I was like, I should show this to my agent. Black Sand Beach was about to come out, and then it'd been like, they told me it would be delayed. Then they released it early to make sure it would get into bookstores before they stopped like getting shipments. And then my tours had been canceled, and my convention appearances had been canceled, and all of the like everything was kind of collapsing in around me. I think this is actually like right around the time we first spoke. And so I was making this book. I showed it to my agent, and I showed it to a handful of close friends, and they all said, "You cannot release this book. You write children's books." And like chapter 1, you go to a sex club and tell a story about like finding porn, looking for porn in your father's bedroom drawer and finding like a far more depressing book. Chapter 2 is about you going on like a grinder date that you think is going to be disappointing because you're depressed, and it turns out to be magical and fun. And then chapter 3, you tell a very revealing, vulnerable story about being in love with your co-writer that you'd known since you were 14 and he was 54, and like why you stopped being friends with him in 2017. Like this will destroy your career. And so I was like, okay, great. I can make the rest of this without having to ever think about anyone seeing it. I can just try and make the best comic I've ever made while I'm, isolated and completely alone and whatever. And it was very hard for a lot of reasons, but I did it. And then I put it away and showed absolutely no one. And then last year, there were all of these kind of tipping points for me with certain publishers being really shitty, certain books being treated badly, and basically me being like massively disrespected, while at the same time me being terrified that I was going to fuck up because I was putting out Haunted Hill by this point, and that is quite adult. But it was under the Richard Sucks imprint. I was keeping it separate. I was not doing publicity about the 2 things, but I was getting more and more scared. Every time I do an interview, I would forget, am I talking about Haunted Hill, or am I talking about Black Sand Beach or Blastosaurus or Cardboardia or whatever? And I don't know, there was this one day where I fucked up pretty hard, and there were like, the only repercussions were that my publisher was angry at me, and I was like, but the thing you're angry at me for is me being me. It's not that I like deliberately, there was no malice, there was no ill intent. It was just me
you didn't
being
do anything
me
actually wrong.
And so I that combined with the death of a very close friend just made me go, fuck it. And I quit all my jobs and decided to do this instead.
Wow.
Well, so I remember you were having issues with some of the publishers on the publishing side of it. Like I think it was Cardboardia where they like fucked up a page or something like that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so I remember that, and that was kind of the impetus to do Haunted Hills, and I never thought twice about it, because how many writers do adult stuff and then maybe a kid stuff in the comic space? Like that's not an outlandish thing to do.
Yeah, no, that's really normal. But if you establish yourself in kid stuff first, then publishers get really scared because they're like, what if 8-year-olds go to your Twitter? I'm like, well, they're not going to. Like, there's just there's fear around it. I mean, and I'd had problems like a few in the past. I don't think I've said anything or done anything bad, but like my Twitter obviously a mostly adult following. I mean, I would actually say 100% adult following. Like the youngest anyone is going to be on my Twitter feed is probably 13 or 14. And if they can't handle me sometimes saying some swear words or like implying that I've, had an adventure, then they're free to leave. And when I post like anything with nudity in the art, I always flag it with a warning. I do all the things right. But it was at the point where Harvey Weinstein had announced that he was getting a documentary made to tell his side of the story. And I tweeted, I hear that Weinstein's getting a documentary made to tell his side of the story. I sure hope he doesn't have to fuck himself to get it greenlit. And I would argue that is a perfect tweet.
It is. That's a really good one. Oh yeah,
and
superb.
Two of my publishers freaked out and like demanded I take it down, and I did, but I didn't feel good about it. And after it wasn't so much that a page was misprinted in Cardboardia and like lost all of the text and ruined a massively important story beat for the second book. It was that they tried to blame me for it. And I would say, I've got the files. I can look. I can see my versions of the files that I've sent you. They are flattened with the text. Like the text is flattened onto the word balloons. Like someone has removed this layer afterwards. And it was very clear that they didn't want to talk about the problems they had within their own system. They wanted to talk about like blaming a person who was far away. And obviously I wasn't going to have that. And so then when the editor on Cardboardia took 11 months to get back to me about a 2-page script synopsis for the third book with the note of, yes, you can go ahead with scripting. Can we have the book by the end of the month? It's a 96-page book. Absolutely, you cannot. And it was just like, oh, I'm the thing that makes the thing that can make them money, or they can sell to TV without asking me, or that they can do whatever they want with. But I am the person who is respected the least. They asked me at the beginning of COVID if I could make a podcast about Black Sand Beach. There was a lot of promises of like, we will discuss money next week, but we need to get this out there before the book comes out to publicize the book. I did it at not great personal expense, but a great personal cost in terms of calling in favors and risking like figuring out ways to do this that were COVID safe at that very beginning, back when we were all still spraying our food with fly spray to kill anything. Yes. Just me, good flavor.
It's good flavor. Yeah.
But then when I spoke to them the next week, they were like, "Oh well, if we want to do a second season, we could talk about a budget for it. But since this one's made," and then they didn't promote it, and I said, "What is this for then? If it's not to promote the book as an easy onboarding for customers?" And they said, "Oh well, we're really hoping that the book will help to bring attention to the podcast." I'm like, well, that's the opposite, and there's no mention of the podcast in the book because it was already printed. Like, you guys are just very bad at your jobs,
right?
Which is when I tweeted another perfect tweet of. Because of the publicity around Black Sand Beach, even I forgot it existed.
Oh my god!
I get a little spicy when I'm challenged by
Understood though. I mean, completely understood.
I've been in self-publishing since I was 7 years old, and I've never had a book that doesn't turn a profit. And when my royalty statements come in from a well-funded American publisher with access to an entire world of stores, and the numbers they sell are lower than I would sell at a single convention, I feel like they're doing their job poorly. When the first book that I do with them, they say to me, "You're the comic expert, we will not give you any notes." And then the second book, they'll come back to me and say, "Well, I've edited a comic now, so I know how it works, so let me tell you what to do." I'm like, "No, you haven't. I've done 270 books at this point, and frankly, read my reviews. I don't want to sound like an asshole, but they're there." And so then last year, when they repeatedly came back to me with things saying, "We haven't done this part, but we want you to do your thing anyway," I sent off the first 2 completed chapters of finished art on Black Sand Beach 4 in March of 2021, and I still have not received notes, but they are annoyed at me that I didn't continue making a book for them when it was like, I need to know if this is approved before I go on to the next part, because it's a big, load of work. So here I am 2 years later, the book's going to be massively delayed, and publicly, that's going to fall on me, because when a book gets delayed, especially a comic book, everyone says, I guess the artist is slow.
Yep.
So
That
I got
that
mad.
kind of brings me to a question for you, because famously we talked about how you were kind of going with book publishers over comic publishers because the deals were better, if I'm remembering that correctly. At any point during this, did you kind of feel like I should have just gone with a comic publisher, or was that
Um,
never really something that came to you?
it's tough. I have had like an annoying history of small publishers coming to me and saying, uh, we know how fast you make comics. Will you be our first comic book? And I have foolishly said yes a few times. And I've been screwed over by a number of people. I have been owed tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for various projects over the years that I've never been paid. And I am also someone who has fallen for the idea of, hey, I'm an editor. We're basically friends because we hung out that one time. Will you give me a discounted rate on whatever? And I say, sure, we're friends. Let me help you out. We'll figure it out for the next book and do a better deal. And it's been it's been a steep learning curve, shall we say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, the book market always promised a much larger return, but when you have companies who are doing things like working into the contract that they can do, if they do sales through a book club, your royalties are cut in half, and then they sell the book to their own book club and then
Oh,
resell it at full price. They're just cutting
wow.
your royalty in half. They're making sure you never earn back your advance with every trick in the bag, and that doesn't feel good. I had a book once that was doing fine. It had like its initial bump from being a new picture book, and it was about an elephant, and then a famous elephant died, and my next royalty statement, out of nowhere, I got like $17,000, and I was like, "That's pretty cool." And
Yeah.
then the royalty statement after that, the number of books that sold was about half of what had sold in the previous period. But what I got what I would have gotten $8,500 for, suddenly I was getting $3,000 for, and I was like, "Oh, you just found other ways to sell this book where you guys are still making the same amount." Like creators are always held at the very bottom because they're the ones who are often really scared to say shit like this publicly for good reason. But after last year's like big reveals from major publishers about how 90% of books sell fewer than a dozen copies, and how like the entire industry is based on like 10 authors doing well for people, I no longer think that there's anything for me to work toward. Like I've hit the upper limit of what I can do in that space, and if it's not bringing me the dreaded word exposure that will get me better deals somewhere else, then fuck it. I'm going to take back control and make the money I used to make.
And that's where Kickstarter comes in.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
obviously, like
Understood.
I'll make maybe $7,000 for this book, like
Mm.
at a push. Like it's my first time there. Um, but one, I don't have to pay an artist. That's pretty cool. And two, I
Yep.
will have another book out on Kickstarter in May, and Kickstarter is the only place where audiences build. Like from issue 1 to issue 2 of a comic, you're going to lose 50 to 70% of your readers. Uh, on Kickstarter, you are getting a mailing list built into the platform. You're getting discovered by people who are like organically on the platform through recommendations, and it's been like shown that people on Kickstarter buy more things from Kickstarter. If I bring all my friends and family to the Kickstarter platform to support me, which by the way I have not successfully done, um,
They're
they
like,
will
you're
stick
going
around and buy
where?
more things. Yeah, my mother and father have not bought my memoir. Good supportive parents.
Come on.
I mean, it's
Oh
fair.
man.
They probably don't want to see me at a sex club. I get it.
Yeah. I do. That's why I'm getting it. I want to find out. I'll never personally go to a sex club, but I'm curious. I'd like to know.
This is, I mean, it's that the thing I keep having to answer questions about, and I realize that like I don't like you can only get in trouble if you lie. You can only get in trouble if you try and hide things, and you can only screw yourself over if you're tripping over different lies that you're doing to protect someone else's interests. And it happened to me that the point where I accidentally fucked up last year. I was doing a lot of interviews for Haunted Hill at the same time that I was doing a lot of interviews for Cardboardia. And normally, before I would do an interview, I would say, which book is this for, just in case, right? And right
I
before
think
this
that's what
interview,
we
which
did
was
in ours last year.
exactly, it was a live stream, and this person, right before we went live, said, oh, by the way, I've actually read Haunted Hill, and I fucking love it. And I was like, good, okay, I know what I'm talking about. And the first question comes up, and he says, so in your story, a lot of the places are based on real life places. Which one is your favorite? And it should have been a red flag that sounds like a question for a kid's book, but like Haunted Hill is based on a real place. It seemed natural. So I
Right,
said,
right.
definitely Slamtown. It's the prison-themed sex club that Eva works at, which is based on Slammer, my favorite sex club in LA. Obviously for the senior discount Sundays, which is like a fucking smorgasbord for me in the afternoons, but also their big claim to fame is they have the longest succatorium in Southern California. And the guy looks at me and says, succatorium? And I said, it's like a wall of glory holes, or actually at Slammer, it's mostly bars. But what differentiates theirs is that it's split level. So the guys getting their dicks sucked are higher up. So as the sucker, you can be on your feet down at the bottom, sucking them off. And you don't want to be on your knees in a place like this because the floor gets pretty fucking gushy.
As it would.
So I'm talking to a live stream of librarians about Cardboardia. And I came away from it being like, shit, like I've ruined everything. And I realized like that sense of fear, I was having that every interview that I did anyway. It wasn't worse when I fucked up. And I realized, well, if I stop doing interviews about books for kids, if I stop trying to please that market, then I'll be fine. And if there are parents out there who want to retroactively not buy my kids' books, so what? Like, what am I losing?
Right. Right. And yeah.
And I feel like you still could make kids books in the future. Like even if you do them through Kickstarter, honestly, it's I understand like I'm trying to think of an author who does it, and maybe like you have more of a eventful life than some of these authors would, but I don't think it necessarily keeps you out of it
No,
per
no,
se.
no. It certainly. I think it burns some bridges with some of my other publishers that I previously had, and I've been doing exclusively all ages content now for almost 7 years. But I don't think it like prohibits anything that I want to do. But you know how fast I work. I have 8 books coming out this year. 4 of them will be on Kickstarter. 4 of them will be through other publishers, and only one of them is all ages. So I think I'm good.
Yeah, and I just want to talk about like as far as this interview goes, and you said a lot of people are scared to talk about these types of things or they're nervous about it, but
Are you
I
about to
really
tell me
appreciate.
you just got booked on like a conservative Christian network and you really need to cut all
Yeah,
this?
yeah, we gotta cut it all, man. No, we don't give a shit. I think that I don't think Chris could ever behave for that. No.
That would
I
be tough.
with the cum
It
jokes,
depends
no
how
more
much
cum
money
jokes,
they
dude.
threw at me, but it would be tough.
um, yeah, I just want to commend you for coming out here and talking about that because that opens our eyes too of like, okay, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it's a lot of it's a struggle, and you don't have the support that you think you do. So,
Mm,
um,
exactly.
Well, that's why I feel that for independent creators like yourself, what you're doing now, going to Kickstarter, getting it funded, doing all that, is the better option to do that. And then maybe down the line, somebody comes in and says, hey, we'd also like to publish this. Because
Yeah,
then you're
potentially.
not as like tied to having to deal with their demands.
Yeah, and it means that I can be a lot freer to say, no, I'm not changing this. It's already been published somewhere. You are doing a reprint,
right.
which is a good feeling. It's a good sense of power. And I mean, like Chris, you just said that depends how much money. I think I have realized that It's amazing how little money people think they can control you with. And I'm not really willing to have that happen again. I've always said that I'm willing to be like broke as a bad joke for my life if it means I can create whatever I want. And I have done that. I've also been very lucky, and I've been paid a lot of money for books. And I'm now in a position where I don't know, for a while at least, I can take huge risks. But even if I wasn't, like, if I have to live in a place, like I want to live in LA, obviously, because it's my favorite place on earth. But if I have to live in a 150-foot studio apartment for $1,000 a month, I will. I will have a bed and a desk and a lamp, and I will draw my comics, and it will be fine. Um, Money doesn't. I've sort of realized that money has made very little difference to how I live my life. Right now, because I'm staying in a place that has no hot water because of like some bad choices I made a couple of weeks ago. Yes, I could have found a different place to stay, or I could do what I have been doing, which is I'm in Hollywood. The tourist population here are older. A lot of older people believe that when you check out of a motel, you're meant to leave your key on the dresser and leave the door open. So I go out at 9 a.m. every morning around checkout time, look for an open door, and take a shower.
That would be a great idea.
It's working well. I've showered like every day but one, and that was just because I woke up late.
Wow.
And I'll be honest, if someone came to me with a buttload of money and said we want to host Fortress moving forward, and let's say it was a Christian conservative thing, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be
Yeah.
a fucking Christian conservative dude. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to the audience, but if somebody came to me and said, listen, we think we can take this to the next level, be a part of our network, maybe turn the cursing off. I could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like it's all personal decisions. You can figure out what you're willing to give up and what you're not. And I just realized that like I'm a dirtbag. Like I'm pretty proud human garbage. I will like I've told you the story about seeing the guy fuck the fish in my courtyard, and I just sat and watched it. And I don't want to have to not tell that story to people because it was a really great moment in my life. I don't want to have to pretend. And look, full transparency. Like a lot of this doesn't come from just me wanting to talk about trying to average one different sexual partner a day for my whole life, and it doesn't come from like uh me like eating hot dogs that get sent to me in the mail. It comes from the fact that like my husband, who I love very dearly, is 40 years older than me because I grew up being turned on by Grandpire and Master Splinter, and that is just the idea of having sex with a person my own age disgusts me because they look unfinished. And it was very clear that places don't want me appearing with my husband. They don't want him to be a public figure because like it's we've moved into an age where it's fine to be publicly gay, but it's certainly not fine to be publicly gay and weird. And I don't like that. I don't like being treated like there's something wrong with the normal part of my life. And I will lean into the far more extreme parts of my life, in one, because it's a more interesting story, but two, because it really sends the very clear message of which part are you going to try and stop? The bit where I talk about succatoriums or the bit where Ray and I turn up to a public event and get photographed together?
Yeah, that would be like somebody paying me to be like, all right, you're going to be the public figure of this thing, but like, you can't talk about comics anymore. I'd be like, but that's like a huge part of who I am. Like, that's a huge part of my life. I can't just turn that off. That would be the better analogy from what you're saying, in my opinion. And that, I don't know if there's an amount of money that someone could pay me.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things that people could pay me not to do. There are things that I don't care about.
Right. I think, man, so, I mean, we've gone through a lot here, and this is probably, I don't think it's a bad thing when I say this, but it was a lot more of a serious conversation that we've had today than we've ever had before, and I do truly love that.
Thank you. I tried to keep it light with all the good jokes.
Yeah, no, but I love that. Like, you get a smirk out of me, but I know this is like, I shouldn't be cracking up at some of these things, but you've always entertained me when we talk with each other. It's always a fun time, and I think when I did, listen to your description of Octopus when you talked about it. I read through some of the pages, and I would say it's very real, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff has similarities and things in your life, but it's a very serious, not serious. I don't know if that's the word, but there's a lot more weight to this book, and that's what I've realized looking through the page.
Yeah, I mean, I try and keep it fun. I think it's
right.
Ultimately, it's a book about hope. Like, it's so for the listeners and viewers, it's It's okay. It's a 144-page graphic novel, 7 turning points in my life across an 18-month period, told out of order for thematic reasons, but largely about me uh, being in a horribly abusive relationship, getting a divorce, a suicide attempt by stealing a boat, um, moving to Hollywood, making a new best friend, ending a toxic friendship, meeting a nice man while trying to like make comics and not turn into an octopus myself. And it's about, the octopus thing is about discomfort, but it's a memoir of flailing. It's about me sending out my tentacles to the world and trying to grab onto something that feels more solid. Um, but it ends with me feeling like that's possible. And along the way, because I think I've talked about this on here before, I have this concept of miserable fun, which is that no matter how bad a situation is, if it's going to make a good story later, it becomes immediately enjoyable. Like I haven't had an unenjoyable time for probably well over 10 years now. The worst possible times in my life are always through the filter of, well, I can't wait to tell someone about this. Um, and that was actually like when very embarrassingly, this is not in the book, but when I stole the boat to try and disappear at sea, uh, it was when I realized like, oh, I'll never get to tell anyone that I did this. That's enough of a reason for me to get out of this boat. Um, and like miserable fun saved my life. Embracing that, embracing the worst parts and the best parts, and having a good time while doing it is me, right? Um, so yeah, it is a heavier book. It's a more vulnerable book, but it is. I don't want people to think I'm going to pick up a big depressing memoir. I
No,
want people
right.
to read
No,
this
for
and be
sure.
like, this is more The Alcoholic than it is Fun Home. This
Mhm.
is it's hopeful and dirty. I'm an
Mhm.
unapologetic dirtbag.
So it seems fitting from everything you've said today, from everything I've been seeing leading up to this book, that this was the coming out party for Kickstarter. I mean, I know I made a joke pre-recording that we were going to be a hard time about being on Kickstarter because you were always kind of not so fond of that platform.
Yeah, yeah.
But I guess I'll go in this direction instead. Like, am I correct in that this is like the book that was very important to launch that new path for you?
Um, sort of. I think that I had been misunderstanding Kickstarter for a long time, and I've backed a lot of books on there for a really long time. But what I was seeing was the term kickstart means to get something going and then build from there. And the reality of the comic industry is that that's not how it works. You have to keep going back there. If you're building an audience there, stay there. People are not. I think I was under the impression that people were backing issue ones from a sense of guilt and then being expected to stick around. And I don't think that's what's happening. I think that people are backing in issue one, getting something they couldn't get anywhere else, and then backing in issue two. I'm putting out graphic novels through Kickstarter, and it's not because I think it's bad to put out individual issues, like which I did used to think. But it's because I work so fast that I would be very, very bored if I had to put out one issue at a time. I was going to actually do the first volume of Haunted Hill through Kickstarter, and it was going to launch in March. And I'd actually like designed the variant cover and actually sent the book off to a printer and everything. Like I was going to be so far ahead on this. I was going to fulfill in the goal was to fulfill in under 2 weeks because I actually was meant. Well, I'm going to Australia for my friend's wedding, and I was like, I should the fastest fulfillment ever. Why not? And then I was getting very nervous and what have you about doing this because what if it all failed? Because of course it can. And I have this approach where if I'm scared of something, I have to just do something scarier. And then, if the medium diving board is scary to you, just jump off the high dive, and then you can jump off the medium diving board 1,000 times, and it'll be fun every time. So Octopus was the much scarier book to put out there. Like, while I'm circling around it and joking about, the old sea captain who puts 4 fingers up my ass, there's also like me breaking up with my best friend and having to really like grieve that, not just in like move past the anger of really bad shit that he did to me and ways that he wasted a lot of my time, but also being ready to grieve for the incredibly good times we had together in like a 15-year friendship that started when I was a kid and he was a fully grown adult. And examining the power dynamic and the misunderstandings I had, it's like I I was sexually active from when I was very young, and like I was seeking this out. But I was genuinely under the impression that, oh my God, all of these adults must think that I'm very grown up if they're willing to have sex with me as a 12 and 13-year-old. And it wasn't until like my late 20s that I stopped and re-examined that and was like, hang on, no, they were bad people.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
yeah. But
Yeah.
at the time, I was like, man, I must look like I'm real grown up. And I'm wearing like a suit jacket I'd stolen from my dad that didn't fit right.
Right,
Like,
right. Yeah.
there's a lot of things that I've gone through in my life that have remained unexamined, and putting that kind of stuff out into the world is scary. But
Yeah, I
it
can
means
imagine.
Haunted Hill is going to be easy. It means that the XYG
Yeah,
Frankenstein will be easy. It means that the Lights That Guide You Home will be easy. So why not?
yeah. And I think that's how scary it is. It's already a Kickstarter project we love.
Yeah, we
It's
got
got the
that. We got
stamp.
that before we launched. I keep saying we. It's entirely me. I
Yeah,
got
it's
that
all
before I
you.
launched.
Yeah.
When
You.
people talk about Kickstarter, they always say we because they want to credit their
Yeah.
team. I want to be very
Yeah.
clear to the person who emailed me offering, "Hey, if you want to fire your artist, I can do better work for you." Fuck you, I'm the artist.
Yeah. Fuck you. He's the artist.
Thank you for that
You,
great email, though. It was really
you
kind of
piece of
you, I guess.
shit.
Day one,
um,
1 hour into the
wow,
campaign.
you're already getting feedback, and the book's not even. um, and you're already funded, right? You're
Yeah.
over twice the goal, 151 backers. I would say you probably already have a following, and I would say the all ages bullshit and what you've said to people, I don't think it's really hurting at all.
No, I
And
mean,
that,
like I
yeah,
funded in 6 hours, which was a big relief. And so now it's just I've got a little under 3 weeks left on the campaign, and so now it's just uh, playing it out and seeing what happens, keeping it going. I'm obviously in the dead zone right now,
right, of
but
course.
I'm still getting 4 or 5 backers a day, and seems
And
kind of nice.
I want to ask you the boring question about your pledges.
Sure.
Because I'm a digital reader myself now, just because of room in my bookshelf. But the octopus in a bottle,
Yeah.
what is that?
So okay, I keep having to explain to people what poppers are. Poppers are a liquid that comes in a little brown bottle. They're called poppers because they used to come in a glass vial that you had to literally pop and inhale from. But now you just unscrew a lid and you sniff them, and they give you a sense of euphoria, extreme horniness, and they relax certain muscles. So it makes fun activities way more fun.
Oh,
They
okay.
are legal in most countries. You can buy them at most smoke shops for about $10, or you can import better ones from Europe. And they have great names like Rush and Jungle Juice Platinum, and my favorite, Pig Sweat.
Oh my
Um,
god, I love it.
so I fully endorse this wonderful product. Like, imagine I'm like Art Linkletter on the back of a board game. I heartily endorse this product.
Yeah.
And they are like the variant foil cover of the book is an octopus tentacle flipping the lid off a bottle of poppers. Um, and so I decided, like, people like digital comics. People don't want to have too much space on their shelf. Plus, I have a fan base in New Zealand because I lived there for 30 years. And shipping a book there is incredibly expensive. But if I can ship small glass bottles there that look like a bottle of poppers, I can show the people who can view this. This
Yes.
is the octopus in a bottle, and it has no liquid inside, but a tag on the bottle lid with a QR code and a
Wow,
password
that's
to get.
amazing.
So you get the digital comic, which is an expanded edition because it expands like a butthole with this bottle, and so it's got like a bunch of extra content in the book, including like an unpublished story that I just don't think is good enough to be in there. Like it's fine. It's just not a turning point story. It's just a funny story from my past about the time that I ate a thing that I thought was candy but wasn't. Um, and then a couple of 100 pages worth of like other stuff from my back catalog that isn't really available many places. So yeah, that's that, and it's cheaper to ship. And I really like the idea that there will be someone who is having a big night. They've met someone nice on Grinder or Scruff or Mister or Growler or whatever, silverdaddies.com, my favorite, or wherever else, and they
I
will
love
reach
it.
for their bottle of poppers by the nightstand right before someone's about to ram jam something up there, and instead they will just get digital comics.
I love it. Oh my god.
I think sticking with the pledges or the tiers, because I did want to go through those before we ended this as well. So you've got that, which sounds awesome. The digital, you've got the book, the foil cover, which great covers. You also have
Thank
the
you.
sketch cover.
Yeah.
So you're limiting these to 50. There's still a bunch available. So my main question is, have you already sketched these, or are you taking requests for these?
I'm taking requests, so it's 75 Canadian dollars. So whatever that, I can't see anything outside of Canadian dollars because I live half the time in Canada, so my Kickstarter is based there, which is silly of me.
It's like $56.
56 US dollars. That's a good deal for a 144-page graphic novel with a
Yeah.
fucking sketch cover.
Sketch cover.
Yeah, that's really good.
So you get I'm going to draw an octopus tentacle holding anything you want. And I've said within reason, because like if someone's like, can you draw an octopus tentacle holding a swastika? I'm going to say no. But if you say, can I have an octopus tentacle holding my balls? I'm going to say, of course I can draw that for you.
Yeah, right.
Like I will draw basically anything. I've limited it to 50 just because I don't want to be spending like a month of my life drawing them. I know this is my first campaign, and like I think like 6 of them have sold or something. But I'm very aware that I'm going to be selling these at conventions. I'm going to have these as add-ons on later campaigns, and it seemed like a good thing to keep limited just for my time, because I have to still draw like 2 or 3 pages of comics a day just to keep up with my regular output.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot.
And then
Yeah.
you've got cool add-ons as well for people that are checking out the campaign. You got pins, one of the poppers that we talked about, a couple from the cover.
Yeah, there's the dog from the cover, there's a tentacle holding a wine glass, and there's a little bottle of poppers with an octopus tentacle on it.
Which the tentacle holding the wine glass is a great image.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Like I
do
really
love
like how that came out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then you've got this other comic
Yes.
called Horror Shorts. So why don't we do a quick thing on that?
Sure. So I did this. I've got it here. I made this last year. I got invited to be a guest at a convention, and the assistant to the person who booked the guests was meant to email me 3 months earlier, and then emailed me in a panic, being like, "We have you down to appear at this thing. We've got you like a room. We've got you a table. We've had a sign made, and we forgot to tell you." And I was like, "Oh, okay. All my stock is in the US. I'm in Canada. I'm not going to be able to get back to LA and then to the convention in time to like pick anything up." So it's four short stories. 2 of them are like funny, spooky ghost stories. One of them is like a sweet story about gratitude and about the weird places we don't realize that are haunted. And then one of them is these are all things that have been somewhere else, but they've never been collected together, and most of them are things that are not available anywhere anymore. And so the last one is my piece from Nightmare Theater Volume 1, an 8-page psychological thriller about a guy who goes to a party, is having a really great time until he goes to the bathroom and sees corncob holders in the toothbrush cup and loses his damn mind trying to figure out why they would be there.
Yes.
I remember this, yeah.
I remember the story. Yeah. That really bothered me.
Yeah. So it's like I had that made for this like one convention. It was a one-off thing. I drew a new cover with my husband's butt on it, wearing some little like vampire themed shorts, and called it Horror Shorts. And it just I make a lot of short horror comics. It seems like something that'll continue. I'll do a volume 2, volume 3, whatever. But I wanted to have it available to people who weren't just casually seeing me at a convention. So I've limited it to 50 as well. But because I've still got a bunch of shows to do this year. But yeah, it's a way that if you're enjoying the way I write, But like, I'm obviously not going to do another memoir, at least not for a very long time. And you want to see my fiction, then this is a good little sampler of that.
And did you see? I mean, I don't see any stretch goals in here. Did you plan any stretch goals or think about anything like that?
So the stretch goals have all been in updates. The first one was everyone who has backed at a physical level now get. We had like at 100 backers, everyone got the first chapter digitally. At 4,000 or 4,500, I think Canadian, everyone who backed physically gets a sticker with what I'm calling the Tangled Heart, and it's an octopus but the legs are making it the shape of a heart. Or legs. Cool. They're not legs, they're tentacles. I should learn that. I should know more about octopuses than I do. And then, yeah, the release of this add-on was a stretch goal, and then there's one more that hasn't been announced yet, which will be I'm going to announce it here first, but by the time this comes out, it'll be probably in an update, depending how... It's Sunday afternoon when we're recording this, so I am going to go to a new sex club today that I haven't been to, because a lot of the other ones have closed down, and the younger crowd have really infiltrated Slammer, and I'm no longer having a good time. But I've been promised this one in North Hollywood is a far older crowd. But I'm going to be announcing it probably tomorrow or the next day. If I hit 6,000 Canadian, which is annoying. It's an annoying amount because it's going to be like 4,427 American or something crazy.
Yeah, right.
Then it'll be I'm going to do another book. It's called Octopus 1.5, and it is handwritten. Like, it's going to look like a journal, like a traditional like composition book. I've got a little octopus design for the cover and everything. But it'll be handwritten follow-up stories, just text of all of the 7 key men who are in the book, and what happened, or certain key men in the book who showed up. The stories that I couldn't include because like they didn't thematically fit. But like, there's a guy in chapter 4 when I'm feeling really down about how my life is not going to have any more fun adventures, and then I run into this guy at Penn Station who gives me a hand job in the back room, and that's the end of that story, which makes me feel better about everything. That's an obvious conclusion. But there's also the point 6 months later that isn't in the book where I see him in a documentary and realize that I got a hand job from a supervillain. So I'll be talking about that. Or like, what happened to the surfer and what did he say to me on a bus on the way to the zoo that made me get off the bus and walk away and never speak to him again? Or how did I become friends with my ex-best friend again, and then how did he fuck me over after that? What happened? Like, what did my ex, who gave me the American accent because of our unhealthy power dynamic, tell me when I asked if he was okay during COVID? Spoiler alert, another fucking supervillain. As my very dear friend Paul has said to me many times, Richard, your butthole has been like a camping ground for villainous men. And it is true.
That is a terrible superpower to have.
I think worst superpower would be every time you got an erection, you took a shit. But
yeah, that would. Well, some people might be okay with that.
I mean, don't threaten me with a good time, Richard.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's someone out there that wouldn't mind that.
I can give you names.
Yeah, I'll go to you, Richard. Man, we love having you on the show. I'm so glad you got to come back, and we'd love to have you back for all your projects. So you're always welcome back here.
All right, I'll see you in May for Haunted Hill.
Yeah, I would love to have that. And if everyone wants to follow your updates, where do you want to send them? To just the Kickstarter? Or?
Yeah, the web address for everyone is kickrichard.com. And that will be my redirect link for basically all my Kickstarters going forward and all other weird little side campaigns. Because I'm going to... I think there's no value in not being persistent. I'm going to lean into this hard for at least a couple of years and see if I can... Charlie Stickney, who anyone on Kickstarter is aware of, he described my writing as Richard's writing dives headfirst into the butthole of life and comes out the other side better for it. Which, here's the thing, tells me that Charlie Stickney doesn't understand how buttholes work.
Yeah, he's very misinformed. I will say we didn't have that conversation when he was on the show. So.
I will say that Charlie is one of my favorite people because when he met me, I was at a Halloween party that I'd been told was a costume party, but definitely wasn't. So I was dressed as the Hamburglar. And he still took me seriously and became my friend. So,
that's amazing. That's a Charlie thing to do. He's a great guy.
But I want to I would like to get to a point where, even if this isn't my only job, I want it to be a job where if it was my only job, I could do it. I can put out the books and have complete control and do weird shit and challenge what comic storytelling can do, beyond just the what if we reimagine superheroes to be in the real world. I want to do deeply personal stories. I want to do aggressively gay stories. I want to do aggressively feminist stories. And I want to do stories that explore complex emotions like grief and gallows humor and all the rest of it.
Awesome.
And my God, I'm doing a gay Sasquatch story soon as well. So,
oh my God, I'm here for that. Let's go.
well, see, here's my theory. Anyone who says they're going into the woods to look for a monster that definitely doesn't exist, it's just a cover for gay sex. Like, there's no other reason that is happening. Loch Ness, Sasquatch, Abominable Snowman, like Mothman, it's all secret gay sex in the woods. And I can tell you that because I'm an expert at coming up with excuses for secret gay sex because I was married to a woman for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Never use Sasquatch, but
never use Sasquatch. Not a good one. I think we're gonna keep it there. That's the life lesson. Don't use Sasquatch.
I can never watch Bigfoot Hunters the same again.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Have you seen Harry in the Hendersons?
Not yet.
Weird twist. Still stars John Lithgow.
Oh, wow. I love it.
And with that, everybody out there, remember to look in the show notes down below for the links to Richard's work. You can click on those and check it out, and definitely check out this Kickstarter because it looks phenomenal. Richard, thanks so much for being on once again.
Thanks
like
for
Mike said, you are always welcome on the show, and we look forward to the next time, man.